Probably. I
Okay.
I don't really like it. At my house.
We're glad to welcome you to Tremont City Council this evening. There's no work session. We're just going to go right into the City Council meeting. We appreciate you being here. From the city, we have Sean Warnke, Connie Archibald, Lyle Tongley, Roger Friedel, Brett Rohde, Rick Siemens, Lindsay Nesson, Jessica Tanner, Mark Christensen, Officer Nesson. We appreciate you being here, Paul Fulgham. We appreciate you being here this evening. And I have asked, who have I asked? Mark to lead us in the opening prayer. And if anybody's uncomfortable with the prayer, you can stand out and join us in a minute, after which Lindsay will lead us in the pledge. Mark?
Our Father in heaven, as we start this Tremonton City Council meeting tonight, we ask Thee to pour Thy Spirit out on us and help us make correct decisions, help the council make correct decisions for the residents of Tremonton. That their minds will be open, that they can understand the benefits and what the citizens truly want. We're grateful for the town, the city that we live in, and we ask Thee to bless us with safety the rest of this day and health. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Stand and repeat the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll come to that meeting tomorrow.
Declaration. Does anybody have any conflict of interest with anything that we're dealing with this evening? Okay. Council, we have an agenda. I'm sure most of you have looked over that agenda. Any questions on the agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Lyle, seconded by Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of January 7th, 2020. Any questions on the minutes?
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion made by Brett, seconded by Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public comment. Anybody like to comment? Make a comment to Tremont City?
You really are just here to listen, aren't you?
Listen and learn.
Yeah, okay.
We give you an opportunity, JR, to voice. Tell us how good
Maybe
fishing
next
is.
time. We'll see what I learned this time.
Okay. We do have a special experience this evening. Lindsay Nesson has been with the city, Tremont City, for 10 years. So we have her 10-year. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. She serves the city.
$1 for every year.
You betcha.
She serves the city so well. Discussion and consideration of approving resolution number 20-05, adopting a Tremont City Corridor Area Corridor Study Collaborative Agreement between UDOT and Tremonton City to create an integrated land use plan. Sean?
So, you might recall during the budget process this fiscal year, we budgeted about $25,000 to undertake some land use planning. And so as part of that, we were trying to leverage that budgeted funds with others. So Tremont City submitted a grant to UDOT, and through that process, UDOT is providing the city with $50,000 to go along with our funds to essentially do a comprehensive land use plan. So the city's never really done a land use plan as far as I know, where we focus specifically on land uses throughout the city and what makes sense, looking at our zoning districts, any changes to zoning districts, densities. You know, it's a pretty comprehensive planning process. In tandem with that, it's also looking at all the other plans that we've done here recently, such as, we're actually currently working on an affordable housing plan. We just finished our transportation plan, master plan, which has really a big influence on land use. And so having those two, plans reviewed in tandem and incorporated into one overall plan, makes a lot of sense. And then we've done some Main Street planning, as you know, and these are the ones that jump. Oh, parks planning. So the overall effort would be essentially to take all those plans that we've done in the past, recent past, essentially incorporate them into a comprehensive land use plan. Looking at the elements of those plans that have land use policies or objectives. So I would also tell you that the agreement essentially, and it was an agreement that was created by UDOT and sent to us. We had a chance to give input, but essentially what they're suggesting is there would be a project manager, and the agreement selects the city manager as that project manager. And the project manager essentially would go through the process of identifying a consultant, and that consultant would be put forward to what's called the project committee. I think it's called project committee, which is comprised of Steve Bench and Christopher Chestnut from UDOT, and they would essentially either concur or tell me to look for another consultant. Ultimately, that consultant would be forwarded to the city council for approval of a contract. So ultimately, you'd have the chance to approve the contract with a consultant. Right now, I'm looking at Landmark Design. Landmark Design is a part of UDOT's consulting pool, so essentially it's a UDOT project. And for that reason, they've actually, because they use so many consultants, they go through the procurement process and select many consultants. And then from that pool, as projects come upon or come available, then essentially the UDOT member, or in this case city staff, can look at that pool and select a consultant directly from there without having to go through the project process.
What's the name of that company?
It's called Landmark Design. They're out of Salt Lake. Take a look on their website. They've done many, numerous land use plans, more than I could see. They have about 30 different consultants. And so, I went through and looked at all the, not all the websites, but the websites that seem to be from consultants who do land use planning. Because as you can imagine, they have a lot of transportation and engineering consultants, but we wanted to select someone with planning.
Land use experience.
Yeah, land use experience. They're actually landscape architects who do land use planning. They've done, Orem's Parks and Recreation Plan. They've done Harriman's land use plan. They've done most recently Salem. I can give you a whole list of ones they've done. We've also looked at their references, and they all come back really good. So anyways, that's kind of where the direction we're going. I provided a scope of work at the last city council meeting, and that might adjust slightly based upon working with the consultant and having them review our scope of work. Generally, they thought on first review that looked pretty good. So we're just at this point wanting to get the resolution agreement approved and have UDOT approve it, and then we'll start working on refining that scope of work, and then it would come to you ultimately for your review and approval.
And so this plan, you'll go through and they'll come up with a plan, I guess. And then will that be presented to like planning commission and people like that to kind of go through it and put their input in it as all, and the city council?
Yeah, so yes, all the above. There's a steering committee that I think would be selected, which would be comprised of stakeholders. And so this steering committee would work directly with the consultant. And so they might use this steering committee as a sounding board as they essentially move forward with drafting the plan. But ultimately there'll be three different scenarios, land use scenarios, and that'll be put even before the public, and the public will get a chance to weigh in. One of the things they wanted to change, they being Landmark and in our scope of work was having a more robust public comment process or public input process. But ultimately, it is an element of the general plan, so it is under the Planning Commission's stewardship for the creation. And so, the Planning Commission's review and input will be, critical to it. And
So you mentioned these other plans in here that we've already approved and adopted, correct?
mhm.
So probably the correct thing to do would be to go through and create this land use plan and get it all approved and then at that time compile them all into one? Or are you gonna try doing that all at once? I guess, or are you just gonna try figuring it out as we go?
Well, that's one of the items that we've been discussing in the scope of work, and Landmark designed, gave us essentially two thoughts on that. One would be essentially to try to incorporate all those plans, meaning when I say incorporate it, put it into a similar format.
Correct.
There's hundreds of pages that are part of that plan, and my best, after thinking about it, I guess my recommendation to the City Council and Planning Commission would be to just leave those as standalone elements of the general plan and not try to incorporate them, because I think we could, one, use a lot of time in trying to incorporate it, just being a formatting issue. Or if they try to abbreviate, then I think we lose a lot of the information that are a part of those plans. So there are 3 plans that are required by state code to have that comprise a general plan, transportation being one, affordable housing, moderate income housing being another, which we're currently working on, and then a land use plan being the last. And then all those other elements, such as, what have we done, parks and open space, those aren't required elements of a general plan. So that's, an item for discussion, and certainly the Planning Commission, could weigh in on that along with the City Council and what they'd like to see.
Okay. I think it's something we need. I really think we need a land use plan. I think it can give us direction, it can get us strategies we can use to move into the future. So I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2005.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Brett, seconded by Lyle H. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Connie Archibald, aye. Oh, I'm going.
Lyle H.I.
Brett, aye?
Rick, aye.
Okay, thank you. Discussion and consideration of approving the disposal of the city vehicle, 2004 Ford ambulance. John, who wants to take this?
I can take it.
Okay.
Essentially, Portage had a first responder vehicle that was in an accident recently, and so they no longer have a first responder vehicle. I think they have an interest in using or having essentially this vehicle if the city were declined to dispose of it. So this was an ambulance that wasn't declared surplus yet. That's what is on the agenda, and the council, or the action that the council would take. But it's essentially moved out of the fire department into the police department. The idea was that it's going to be used as an investigation vehicle.
Basically a crime scene vehicle, you can have all their stuff in there.
Okay, thank you. And so I think the plan is to take one of those ambulances in the future and do that, but at this point, I think the police department's fine to allow it to be released to Portage, and then look for another ambulance in the future, and essentially, make a crime scene investigation vehicle, in the future when
The
everything's
police
sort of lined up.
department's good with that?
Yes.
They are?
Yeah, I think what a great use for it.
I agree.
You know.
Either way it goes, it's a good use, whether we help
Yeah.
Portage or up here.
It's good.
Well-
Your neighbor. You ready for a motion?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll make a motion this evening that we go ahead and dispose of the city vehicle to Portage City.
Motion made by Connie,
I'll second it.
seconded by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, awesome. Discussion and consideration of accepting a $30,000 national grant award as part of the 2020 Fit Cities campaign, an initiative to install and activate activate fitness courts.
So you're not gonna put in a pickleball court, are you, and name it after Mayor Breedon?
I think it should.
We definitely are gonna do that. So I'm just gonna have Lindsay play this video and then we'll discuss it further.
Our campaign is growing. From college campuses to city parks and trails, we're bringing free fitness everywhere, and we're just getting started. Hi, I'm Mitch Menadgett, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979 when we opened the first fitness court. Redesigned for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives so that each day is better than the last. This year, 2,000 certified ambassadors will be trained to deliver classes, challenges, and clinics as part of our National Fitness Campaign. We'll also be hosting training camps on college campuses across America. The Fitness Court mobile app is your gateway to enroll in these programs, learn the moves, and take challenges as we dig deep to create impact for our partners across America. NFC partners and sponsors are providing $30,000 grants to 250 qualified cities and colleges in 2020. National Fitness Campaign is a social enterprise and I take no salary, so all the money we raise goes directly to building fitness courts across America. We're proud to have helped cities of all sizes raise millions of dollars from respected sponsors to support free fitness. Wherever fitness is a priority, you can find a fitness court. Building beyond 200 cities and colleges, we're now partnering with large cities using urban movement data to map the best locations for pedestrian infrastructure. We're bringing fitness courts to within 10 minutes of population centers everywhere. We're now committed to raise $150 million to bring the campaign to 1,000 cities and schools by 2021, building the largest fitness movement in the world. Join us and let's make world-class fitness free.
So I was approached, well, I think they were cold calling cities and towns, and they called and asked what our interest would be. And so I said, I think we'd be interested in it. The overview of it, it's a $130,000 program that gives us the whole fitness court, the promotional and marketing kits, the fitness mobile app, the court ambassador kit. Then they will train ambassadors or trainers from the, they'll probably do webinars and they'll do trainings to where we could do, we could program on it and do different challenges and different programs out on the court. And that includes the freight and packaging, shipping. And so, like they said, they did 250 $30,000 grants. I filled out a little application just to see if we would receive that $30,000 grant. We were awarded that. It is non-binding. And then, so what it takes is another $100,000. The city would have to put in some of the money, but they are working with me to go out to corporations and different places in the area to see if they would want to be a title sponsor for the court. And I told them, you know, I think something like this, for what we have, some assets we've put in, I just kind of threw some numbers around in my head, but about $47,000 is what I thought would be a good number for the city to put towards this. So if we weren't able to go out and get the other $53,000, then it would just be a mute subject and we wouldn't continue on with it. But if we were able to get that from different corporations, then I think it would be a great asset. The spot we're thinking is just south of the stage at Jeannie Stevens Park. There's a couple old green sheds that we would like to move, and so we would utilize that concrete pad that's already there and then put this on top of the pad for it. So
It has one of those, what are they called? But it does have a pad over that you put over the,
Yeah, so the court itself, you need a 32 by 32 foot pad, and then it has 1-inch tile squares, so it's got that soft surface area for it.
You don't use it in the winter though, how do you?
You wouldn't use it in the winter, so, and that's kind of, I think that the local gyms, I talked to a couple local gym members that think that it would be a great asset, that the gyms would be supportive of it because, you know, they could get the people exercising in the summer outdoors, and then when it's wintertime, they'd have to do a membership for their gym. But this would completely be free for them. All the programs on it and everything is a free. Their vision is to provide free outdoor fitness for all.
what about operation and maintenance?
So the only moving parts really are those cables, the cable rings, and then everything else is pretty solid. I asked them about that, and they said it doesn't take a lot of maintenance for it. When we would be right there next to it, where it's right next to our office, being able to look over it.
So who would be coaching this? Who would be the person that would be teaching or?
So we would have to go.
Training.
We would have to go out and recruit the ambassadors, and then the National Fitness Campaign trains them on the whole thing. And if you didn't want to be coached by somebody, they have a free app that you just download, and it takes you through, because all of the footprints are the exact same for all the courts throughout the nation. So it
So
just takes you through
all
7
of
minutes.
the places are the same, each
Mhm.
court that they put together?
Yep, and it takes you through, I think there's like 7 or 8 different 7-minute workouts that are for cardio or for legs or for whatever they all are. I haven't looked into the different workouts, but I did download the app and kind of browse through it, and it shows you exactly what to do.
Would a person have to sign up or set aside a time to come there? I mean,
No, the only time that they wouldn't be able to go on it is if we were programming, but then it's going to be free for everybody for a class, and so they could just join the class or wait until. But other than that, it would be completely free to
who
them.
has this, I don't know that I saw that, who has this close to us?
There's one in Avon, Colorado. That's the closest one.
Oh,
And then Heber City has gone through the application process, and they're about a year in front of us, but they have not put it in yet. So I think they're still working on getting the financing from the other.
sure.
Liability, you know, we've had problems with people getting hurt on our equipment. How do you feel about that?
I think it would be the same as like our playgrounds, where we do a routine maintenance inspection on it and just make sure all the cables are strong and the nuts and bolts are tight, and note it down every time we do, and I think it would be okay.
So other than Heber City, looking into this, there's no other Utah communities that
No.
have done this yet?
Not
Are
yet.
there others besides Heber City?
They only gave me Heber's name, and I called their mayor, and she said they've gone through the application process, but they haven't raised the funds yet. And like I said, if we weren't able to raise the extra funds, I don't know, maybe the council was more apt to spend more money on it, but I think that was kind of my ceiling, was the
Do you have room in
47.
your budget for it?
It would be an impact fee eligible project, where it's expanding the offerings that the city offers, and so we'd be able to do it with the impact fees.
With some of you may be able to get a pretty good sponsorship from the hospital if you put it closer to them.
So the hospital is my number one. I'm hoping that they
Yeah,
would.
but you see my point. I mean, if you were to somehow be able to work that into moving that closer to them, that would be a benefit for both organizations, and it would probably
Do you
drive
think
a
it's
lot
too
more
far
funding.
from like the location that we're?
You know, with some of the things we've talked about, that may be, I don't know if the timing's right or not on that, but it's just.
Right.
They can see that.
But they're all about walking,
Yeah,
so, you
And
know,
healthy lifestyles.
so
it wouldn't really make any difference, but that would be a great partnership for sure.
I think so too. That was my number one idea of a partner for now, so.
So, like the rollerblading, roller skating park, is it something that, I mean, we did all that with that, and is it something that's still used quite a bit?
Yes, all the time.
It's used all the time?
Yeah, as soon as kids can get on it, it's used.
They're using it all the time?
And they're using it a lot more for scooters and bikes, but they have some skateboarders as well too, but it's used a lot.
Do you think that we ought to maybe kind of see what the interest is with some of the potential, like maybe possibly the hospital and some of the others that you're looking at? And
Absolutely, yeah.
So what interest there is?
We're kind of doing a dual track. Like I said, it's pretty early in the process. We've been awarded this $30,000 discount. Really, is what it is. It's early in the process, but we can do it on like dual tracks, where the next thing they need from the city is a letter of
Commitment or?
Support, letter of support for the court. And in the bullet points, you'll see that pending the extra sponsorship. And so our next call is talking solely on sponsorships and how we can.
Well, really, if you can get the outside community to support 50% of it like that, I think it's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think I'm all for it.
Any further discussion?
I think I'd like to see if we can get this extra, see what support we can get from some of the others, and I feel the same way. If we can get that kind of support, then help us along, then I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
You want a motion to make it official?
Yeah, I make a motion, we accept the grant and follow forth with those bullet points.
Motion made by Brett,
Second by Connie.
second by Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sounds
Thank
good,
you.
Mark. Thank you. Discussion of water rates. Paul Oljum.
We were actually gonna do this in February, but I won't be here for that meeting. Curtis is gonna be here, so we thought we'd move it up. And I'll just have Lindsay go through it. Prior to December, the city council kind of said they wanted us to look at those culinary and secondary rates again. And so we met in December. It was Brett and Sean and myself and Curtis Roberts. See, Lyle wasn't there and Shari wasn't there anyway to discuss the secondary rate to see what we could do. Biggest concern, as you know, is the rate, what it costs for secondary water. And we know what the reason for the cost is because of the infrastructure cost. Because even though the water is a lower quality, it still takes the same infrastructure to move water from the canal to everyone's home. And that's what the rate covers, is the infrastructure cost, which for the new council people, we've borrowed $3.4 million, plus we have the operation and maintenance cost on top of it, that we have to collect enough money each year to pay that debt and to pay the operation of the secondary system. And since September 2018, we've spent upwards to $1.4 million on acquiring water shares. So we have enough water shares now and into the future to do that. And all that has to be covered through some source of revenue. So we kind of discussed what option is. And another thing is, before we sat down and make some kind of commitment, Curtis will look at the water rates that we're charging to make sure that if we can adjust them down, that we make we have to be able to collect at least 125% of the debt payment plus the operation and maintenance payment to be able to pay that. That's part of the loan requirements. So I'll have Lindsay take the next slide down. And so we had the discussion, and probably the most favorable thing to come out of the discussion come from Brett. Brett says, you know, why are we calling it culinary versus secondary? Why don't we call it a water rate? Because we know as we move forward with secondary water, until we build enough customers, the culinary systems are handling the debt, you know, because until you get enough people on the system. And so we ran through some things. So we call it a water rate with all the ratepayers paying the same rate. Makes it more equitable on the rate structure. There's no subsidies by any ratepayer. Would reduce the concern, so as new sections come on, the people that then move from using the culinary water on their lawns to the secondary, they see no change in their rate. It's the exact same rate. Also provide more predictable revenues for the city because we know exactly what the water use has been, we know what the revenue has been, and so that move would kind of be nil as far as what the revenue would do. It wouldn't go up, it wouldn't go down, it'd more or less stay fairly neutral to cover the costs. And then it would be a more predictable expenses to the residents as they make that switch from secondary or from culinary to secondary for their outdoor watering. And so, next one there, Lindsay. So what I've done is I gave you what our current rate is, which was passed in February, as far as the secondary is concerned, February of 2019. So just almost a year ago. And you can see our culinary rate then is for the first 7,000 gallons, the citizens or customers pay $1.25 per thousand. And you might say, why 7,000? Well, that's for indoor use. And at the very end, we've got a couple slides that show, you know, what the average indoor use is in Tremonton. And then we broke it up when we first set the secondary rate back, our culinary rate back in 2017 and had to go to a tier rate. We broke it up into 4 different tiers. The first tier covering indoor use, and the next 3 tiers covering outdoor usage. You can see that. And then what we did is when we looked at secondary, we thought, okay, how are we going to incentivize or penalize or whatever to get people to move off of that? So a second culinary rate was adopted for those that had secondary to their home or to their yard, but did not choose to use it. And so what it was is, if you look at that very bottom block, you'll see still the internal use of 0 to 7,000, we kept it the same. And then what we did is we expounded the cost per 1,000 gallons. If you elected to stay on secondary or culinary for outdoor watering, you would pay a different rate. Because there's people, and everyone knows, there's people that don't use much culinary water on their lawn, or there's people that have their own well that they put on their lawn, but they still have to have some water inside, which is going to cost them the same. So that's why we kept that 7,000. That mid block was what we had come up with last year for secondary rates. And that secondary rate was from May 1st to November 1st, which is when the canal's in. And what we had was a $10 base, and then in the 30,000 gallon increments is what we're blocked it as, $1.50, $2, $2.50, $3, $3.50 per 1,000 gallons in those blocks. That way, as they use more, still we want to incentivize people to conserve water. I mean, the goal isn't to give people so much water they can just use whatever. I mean, that's been a problem in the past with a lot of secondary water systems. It was unmetered. Our water is metered. We know exactly what they get. So that's the current rate that we have right now. Next slide there, Lindsay. So as a committee, we discussed, you know, what could we do to make it a water rate and not secondary versus culinary. one thing is if we adjusted the rate now, that we have right now, that we're calling the culinary rate, adjusted that base of $2 a month, that would see the need to get rid of a base rate for the secondary system. So it would push our base rate from $10 to $12 a month. And no, as a base rate, you pay a base, you get 0 gallons for it. Because there's some cost in a water system, no matter if you sell a drop of water, you still have to cover some of that cost. Chemicals, sampling, a lot of EPA requirements come before you can even pump a drop of water. And so that's kind of what the base is, to help cover some of those costs before you sell water. The second idea was also to adjust that first tier from 7,000 gallons up to 10,000 gallons. What that would do is those that do have larger families using more indoor water, that would give them a little bit of a break. It's not much. If you look at that break, it's only about 75 cents per month. But that would give a 10,000 gallon limit on that indoor usage instead of the 7,000. And then the third idea was then also adjust those tiers to match what the secondary tiers were matched, which were 30,000 gallon increments. I did a study, a little calculation, and without the $2 a month raise, okay, if we just alone kept a base rate on the secondary and adjusted the culinary, those that use culinary, actually their bill overall would go down about $5 a year, unless they're higher users that are using over 50,000 a month. And then their overall bill would go up about $15 a year. So that's for the heavier users. So you could say that is still the same scenario, except for the $2 a month average. You know, that'd be $24 a year plus. Some of them would go down 5, some of them could go up 15 for the heavier users. And this is only looking at the residential heavier users. So, next slide there. So it would make a rate that would look like this if we adopted some kind of rate like this. The culinary rate, everyone, whether you had culinary or secondary, would pay a $12 a month base rate. And then you'd have a first tier of 10,000 gallons for $1.25 per 1,000 gallons on that first tier. And then after that, everything would be blocked at 30,000 gallon increments. And we matched those 30,000 gallons with what the secondary would be. If you look there, so you probably go down to the very next one. Nope, up. What did I do? Oh, yeah,
Just
that's,
down that bottom
yeah, that
table.
second, yeah, right underneath it. That would be what the secondary rate. If you look, and right now, pretty close to it matches that first tier, or the second tier and secondary for the outdoor usage. So what we did is just match those 30,000 gallon increments, knowing that with secondary, the first 10,000 is all on lawns. They're not using that in their homes. So that's why we went 0 to 30 on the blocks there. And then we also added the incentive to match, but with the incentive rates, which you can see right there, which would incentivize people to hook to the secondary and just saying, you know, it's too easy to use the culinary.
And then they really get hammered there, kind of.
It does. It pushes them. But you know, there's some people that might not hook to it because they don't use a lot of water on their lawn. I mean, and some of these smaller lawns in the core part of town, and you probably notice it, they don't use a lot of water. But then what this does is, as we expand the secondary system, the people that when they hook on see no difference in their utility bills. They can plan for it. They know they're already using 30,000 gallons a month on their lawn. They know it's not going to cost them any more. The only thing it's going to take them is a little more time, because secondary water takes a little more time because of the quality of it. You know, if you have a filter, you have to flush your filter periodically.
Does the water quality change during the year?
On the secondary,
On the secondary? Is it about the same?
it stays fairly constant, I think.
As it goes on, though, it does.
It gets better or worse?
I think it gets worse
Is it because of more return flows? That would be the thing that would do, is more return flows off of fields.
You're gonna have more bacteria and more of that kind of stuff as the summer goes along.
I mean, we let the canals come in and then give it a week before we turn it into our system, because when the canals come through, they flush a lot of debris down those canals.
Yeah.
And because of the nature of what we're doing with pumping and stuff, we always let it go. But, I did test on it, and I'd have to go back to look and see how the bacteria count went up.
And it depends on what part of the canal too. Some parts are
Depends on,
dirtier than other parts.
if you have a lot of dairies that they put a manure on the fields and then return flows, you're gonna pick up more E. coli and bacteria. The next slide there. Okay, this is what I talked about. What I did is we looked at the residential water use. Number one is residentials only. I took all the commercials, everybody out, unless you're a residential. And if you see there, the average summertime water use across the state for residential is about 34,000.
Across the state, or
across the city, not state. This is Tremonton City only. So the average is 34,500 gallons of water. And that really depends on who's doing the watering. I also did a median where I listed them all from high to low and then went directly to the middle, and that's where you see the 25.5.
This is in the middle of the summer?
This is July. And July is our peak month. If you look at water usage and water production, that's July. Sometimes August is just as hot as July, but I think what happens is people get a July bill and they'll start backing down their water usage in August. But July is our peak month for water usage. Next slide there. We also looked at what our average winter usage is, and I picked January because January is usually one of our lower months. And there you can see the average indoor use for residential only is about almost 6,000 gallons a month, with the median being 4,500 gallons. So,
and all customers, that would be even things like the hospital.
That's the hospital. That's throwing in our big users like Multi-Mill, West Liberty Foods, averaging them in. Hospital, Intertape Polymer, some of our bigger users throwing them all in, and then averaging them out. There have been some talk about, well, we need to lower the first tiers down and hit the higher tiers. Well, the problem is we can't count on the usage in the higher tiers. The lower tiers we can count on the usage, the 30,000, because people use the 30,000. And so when we figured our water rate, that's what we had to look at, is what we figured our average water use was going to be, because that's what has to pay the loan back, is what we sell. And if we lower that number down and try to make it to where we reduce the cost, we can't assure that we're going to make it up on the other end.
The thing that concerns me is, and we talked about this, is the price elasticity, how sensitive people are to using water. If it's going to be really pricey, then they cut back, and your revenue, your overall revenue actually goes down, and it all depends on whatever that elasticity is. And so my thinking is, and I'm not being critical here, believe me, I'm not trying to be critical. I think it would be good for us to do a little pricing on this to just see how sensitive people are.
Well, if you remember, think back to 2016 when we adjusted our rates. What was the goal, Mayor? Do you remember?
The goal
was to conserve
Well, it
10%.
was- Yeah, and people didn't adjust.
And what? And this is the exact same rate. If you look at the rate that we adopted then, this is almost the exact same rate.
Yeah.
Until you get into the higher tiers, that first 30,000 gallons, or that was 33,000, was $1.50, which is the exact same right here.
Right, and like I said, I'm not trying to be critical.
No, I'm just
All
saying-
I'm saying is that I think that there is.
What I'm saying, Lyle, is I think if we look at this, look at their water use, I don't think there's need to, I think everything will just swap right over. Back then, we raised those rates from $1.13 per 1,000 gallons, went to the tiered, hoping for a 10% reduction. What did we get? We got a 2% increase, which did what? Matched our growth rate. So nobody reduced their usage because of we raised the price.
And if this in here goes in, and we're not really raising the price.
We're
not
not,
raising-
we're adjusting some tiers.
Yes, but generally it's a flat shot.
The big adjustment is the $2 a month base rate that we are charging to offset having to have a base rate for the secondary.
And I think another thing that you need to, people, some of the, maybe the larger users, if you look at this, it's sort of like your taxes. You have your different tax rates. And so as you use the first 40,000 gallons, it's $1.50. Then if you go to the next 30,000 gallons, you got the $1.50 plus, then the next is $2. So it isn't really truly that, I understand what I can see what you're doing.
It's a conservation rate. It is
And
what,
at some point,
when the legislator mandated we go to a tier water rate, it was for conservation.
Yeah.
So that's why they didn't say, we want you to look at your revenue and adjust. They said, we want you to have a conservation rate. And it was up to us to come up with what we thought was a conservation rate.
So we're looking at what you're proposing here is we're looking at indoor and outdoor use, and then the total use based on your secondary water plus your other, and combining them together, even though they're on separate meters,
Yeah.
and then just combining them
I mean,
together.
they would get a bill that would show both readings.
But it would be based on.
But
you would have the two readings. You'd have so much indoor use, and you'd have so much.
Yeah.
Or culinary use, and then you'd have so much secondary
Yeah.
use.
And there would be, that way when they move to a secondary system, they'll see virtually no change in their rate that they get. Their bill would probably stay fairly constant if they choose the water the same. It's all about choice of water, and it's not about impacting them so much financially, but it's about, on the secondary system, it's about recovering the cost that we have to make our debt service payment.
So as people have been, moving over to the secondary system, how's the,
The usage,
the usage
the
and then
only
the back.
usage that went down from what I can see, because we had some in Archibald Estates that came on, some over in the River Valley subdivision on the lower that had never had secondary. They came on, and their usage for the outdoor kind of mirrored what they'd been doing before.
Oh, that's what I'm getting at. So
The ones
really
that did
didn't
go
change
down
much.
was the ones that had been used to getting it for $14 a month unmetered. I don't know how much went down. All I could look at is I had a master meter reading where when we pumped, that reading went down. If you look at the end of year report that I send you, and I can go back to last year and graph it for you, that usage went down because what I found out is there were potential using more than what shares we had at the time allocated for that area. And what the metering did, it pushed them down to conserve into the rate that they should be, because discussing with the canal company, it was decided that, Lyle knows, that it's actually half a share for developed acre instead of the normal 1 share for acre of irrigated property. because you take out so much for houses, parking lot, or driveways, sidewalks, and roadways, and they were using way over that half a share.
What was the cost, you know, they were having to redo their systems in terms of sprinklers and filters and things like that? Did you have much pushback on that?
Not for the new ones coming on, because they knew that was part of hooking onto the secondary system. The ones that, the squeaky wheel was on the other side, who already should, if they chose to, been using filters and such. Some of them were. I mean, I have a brother-in-law, he uses no filter. He uses all impact Rainbird style heads, and he just knows that after a while, they're gonna wear out, because even though they're not the gear driven, they still wear out because of
Plug up and. Yeah.
because of the quality of the water. But anyway, this is just kind of food for thought, because, I mean, we probably need to meet as directed by the mayor or something, and
so if they choose to stay on culinary but they have the secondary in front of their house,
they won't
then
get a
they are
bill.
going to be charged this other rate.
They'll be charged that other rate, but they won't get a bill that says secondary water. You know, the way it was set up, the way we had it set up at first was everybody that had it in front of their house would get a $10 a month bill, whether they used it or not. This would do away with that. But if they do have it, they would go to that other rate, but the first 10,000 is the same rate as everybody pays.
So if
But
they're
if they
only
elect-
using 10 or 15 or 20,000 gallons, it's not gonna make any difference.
Yeah, unless they go over that 10,000.
Yeah.
And that means if they have a well that they choose to irrigate with, they won't see any change. Because, I mean, like you seen there that the average is in that 57,000 or 5,700 gallons a month for indoor usage. And you'll see some that use anywhere from 1 to 2. Probably if I looked at the mayors, I mean, you that are living just 1 or 2 of you in your home, you're going to probably look at maybe 3,000 gallons a month, depending on how often you take a bath, how often you do laundry. I know at one time when I had 5 kids at home, my average water use in the wintertime was 13,000 gallons. And at the time we were allotted 12,800, so I always went over, but I had teenage kids that would take 2 baths a day, and we were doing a lot of laundry. Now, in my home with 2 of us, our water use is about 2,000 gallons a month. So,
Has got any questions?
Take the mayor, and let's say his bill for the year is $800 a year currently. So how close are we gonna be to that 800?
well, say the mayor, from what I did, and he would be a higher water user, he would probably pay the $24 extra for the base increase, and then another $15 for overage increase, because now we take those tiers. If you look back, the culinary tiers were the first, after we got through the 7,000, it was a 3,300, or 33,000 and then it went 40,000 and 40,000. Well, now it'll go, instead of 33, it'll go 30,000, 30,000, 30,000. So that's what drove the little bit over at the end of the year, because now they didn't have the 40,000 for the $1 or $2. Now they're got 30,000, so there's 10,000 more.
So about $40 more a month.
So about $40 a month for our year, not a month, a year. But for Joe Blow that doesn't use a lot, it could be, you take the 24 and you subtract off $19 a month, a year more for them because of base increase.
You figure about 14. What are you figuring on the turf usage for the year? Is it about 2 inches a week?
I'd have to look back on that, because
it's about-
if you remember right, when we first set the water rate, we based that second tier on what it takes, according to the state, to keep an average yard in Tremonton, which our average yard is about 1/3 of an acre, green. I mean, I'm not, or alive, or however they look at it, you know, I mean, they'll tell you, green isn't good, but we like green. But that's just on the state average was that 30,000 gallons that we set for that second tier was to keep a third of an acre of grass somewhat healthy and alive and enjoyable, and that's why that first tier was set there. And if you look from the average water use, that's about what it is. And that goes from the quarter acre lots that we have downtown here to the almost half acres that we have in certain subdivisions. So,
Questions? Yes? Thank you, Paul, appreciate it. That's good information.
Thank you for the report.
and then this, you know, I'm just
I think
saying,
it's excellent.
we probably want to move somewhere on this in the next future before
Soon.
secondary season comes, because right now, no one's paying that $10 base, no one's, because secondary, but, you know, come 1st of May, if we don't adopt the new rate, that's the rate that's set there.
By March at the latest, don't you think we need to,
So-
with this,
Oh, yeah,
make a decision?
absolutely.
So, I mean, and it's
Yes.
good to have that little working group, because
You guys did good.
if we
Meeting.
can keep it small enough, we don't have to have it as a public meeting, and we can do some discussions and look at things, so.
Paul, you know what I love about this? It's moving the public towards being conservative. It's listening to their comments that we've already heard. I mean, I've been to the meetings. And it's taking some of their feelings under consideration, but yet we're citizens of Utah, and we've been told we need to move it to a good level as far as being conservative. We need to, the governor wants us to cut it, was it 16%, or what was the percentage?
25 in the next 50 years is what they'd like to see.
But in the next
But in the next 20
20
years, they're like
years,
16% down, reduction.
So we need to move towards that.
I mean, the beauty of things is new homes are more, because EPA has pushed that, you build a new home, they're more water efficient because of all the fixtures. You get new washers, they're more efficient, dishwashers are more efficient. Everything's pushing that way. Us in some of the older homes, we don't have near the efficiency. But as I told people, I don't want to classify us as California, but we're headed that way as far as water, because we're a growing state and we live in the desert, you know.
You know, it's kind of interesting. I had an opportunity to meet with Huntsman today, in Frankfurt, and water was one of the things in his 3 things that he prioritized in his campaign. Water was one of the 3. Water
Well,
is a big deal.
As you know, without water, we can't develop and grow. There's no, I mean, I can build all the wastewater treatment facilities we want, but if we can't get that water from somewhere, there's no growth. And so that's the need to conserve and to, you know, we don't want our cities to go brown, that's for sure. I mean, so if we can take some of this lower quality water and use it, if not, they're gonna end up with it down south, I'll guarantee you.
Yep.
Water flows to where? To money.
That's true.
And so when they have the money,
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. City manager report, Sean.
I'm just gonna do a quick DRC report. When Lindsay's pulling that up, I was just gonna mention to you that I forwarded to you an email that included a link for this plan. This is the plan that the RDA engaged a consultant to do, looking at Main Street, including the urban design and streetscape. And so it is complete. And for your review in an upcoming meeting, maybe even this next meeting, it will be presented to you officially. So it is a rather large document, so I wanted everyone to have a chance to have it a little bit ahead of that meeting. So that's available.
For the acre.
Okay. I was just going to bring you up to speed on some of the development that's occurring. in the city and that the DRC is reviewing. This is 2300 West, right here. And I think the school site's over here. Oh,
Yeah, it's down,
a little
right in
further
there.
down south. But I'm just trying to think what other landmarks. I don't know if you know where Chris Sorensen lives. I think his house is in this area, right here. And, oh, actually, his is up here. I'm not sure this is helping any. This is our friend, bus driver,
Christensen,
Craig
Christensen's
Christensen.
property there.
Yep. And so anyways, that's the general location. And this is what's being proposed. It's 32 lots. This is a concept review that we'll be talking about at the next DRC meeting, which is tomorrow. It looks like it's 32 lots.
It's in Craig's property?
It will, actually, right here is Craig's property, so it will connect into Craig's property. There'll be a road that stubs in, so. But a pretty basic subdivision continuing on what Sierra Homes has done in the past.
So is that Sierra that's doing it?
It is. I need to check the zoning, because I think you want to do larger or smaller lots than is currently zoned. So we need to check to see how this proposed lot size matches our zoning district.
And this is coming in for approval tomorrow?
So it's just a concept.
Oh, concept.
There are no approvals.
Okay.
These are just opportunities
So
for the.
this is where we'll look and see if it fits what the zoning is and everything.
What is the zone over there?
I think it's, I want to say R110. Lindsay, can you look behind you? What is that yellow?
There?
Yeah.
Yep, R110.
Yeah, and I think he wants to do 8,000 square feet lots. Let me see.
What size lots?
8,000? I think there are some 8,000s, 9, I see maybe some 10s. So it doesn't meet zoning at present. We talked about doing some rezoning it and rezoning it, considering some enhancements to the neighborhood. And so I had that conversation with Jay, and I think he's up to potentially do some enhancements, whether it be architecturally or landscaping, something like that. What's below that, Lindsay? That district?
RM16.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, right now we're just looking at the concept. The concept will be followed up by a preliminary plat, final plat. So Tremont Place subdivision. This is Tremont Street right here. This is the State Center, South State Center. Christensen, Blake Christensen lives right there. This is Aspen Ridge, which we'll be talking about. So this is a continuation. This is phase 3, or phase 2. Maybe it's phase 2, and it's essentially just creating a connection back to Tremont Street, which is this street right here. And can't really see the number of lots, but you can see there's maybe 10 or so, 10 or 12. So it's at Planning Commission right now for preliminary plat review. I think they reviewed it once, and I think they're going to review it here in the near future at the next
Yeah, they
meeting.
just had concern about that road stubbing off. Right, the one that goes into 300? Is that 300 West?
150 maybe, this road right here, the
Yeah.
existing road?
Yeah, they had some issues with, and I kind of agreed with them that on the original drawing that was going in and then just dead ending.
Oh, okay.
And so they were just saying, if they're never gonna put a road there, then why even show it on there, and then why not just use that for property for someone to buy, you know?
I think that it'll be in that third phase that they have.
Well, this is the one that, and maybe the one they were looking at the third phase, but you know what I'm talking about.
'Cause
where
there's
it
still
goes-
more-
150 goes across and hooks into that other subdivision in,
Aspen Ridge?
no, the new,
Oh, the old?
the old subdivision.
So let me go back.
Melody Park.
Oh, it doesn't
Yeah,
show
in
it.
the Melody
Yeah,
Park.
see-
So that road right there,
Uh-huh.
his original plan that had the whole thing, not just his face, because we didn't look at his face, had it going in and then dead ending at the end of the property.
Oh, I see.
And then, so, but then we had about 60 feet of people's
Stub.
property, but where two roads could hook together, but probably never will.
Uh-huh.
So it made no sense.
Okay.
So,
I
but
understand.
it doesn't look like that's part of phase one.
No, that's a third, because they're
Yeah.
still north of there, more property.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it'll be reviewed, reconsidered at a planning commission meeting.
And we're the same way, when it comes to stub streets, if they're a stub street that never go anywhere, we don't want them.
Exactly,
It better be a cul-de-sac or
right,
a big lot.
yep. And that's what they argued, they said the same thing. I'm next.
So Aspen Ridges, this is in that same general location, just on the other side of the canal, and next to Tremont Place. And here is the preliminary plat. It's been reviewed by and approved at the planning commission, so now it comes back to the DRC for the final plat, which is more the construction drawings, and the site plan, which is again some.
Now tell me where this is at again. This is, where's,
George and Jess's.
Right next to that.
So it's right here, so this is Tremont Place, there's the South State Center right
okay,
here.
so right there.
Between
Between the
canal.
tracks and the
Track.
canal.
All right, got it. Okay, thank you.
So my question is, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but is there, right now, there's no sidewalk, there's nothing like that. Would that be, at the bottom of that, which would be the south end of that, is that going to be
It's gonna be an 8-foot walk. He's gonna,
Yeah.
they're gonna. put in an
8-foot walk.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
improved with curb and gutter and sidewalk
Yeah.
on that south.
perfect?
And then where you see that blue spot is a nice recreation center.
Mm-hmm.
Park.
And so,
More of a rec
you've
center.
discussed the fact, you've discussed,
Okay.
traffic there, and you feel like the traffic, it's all that housing, how much will impact the traffic of that road?
Well, there will be an impact. But
I know.
The 150 with the new subdivision that Mike is proposing will now have an outlet onto Tremont Street, which will reduce, I'll bet you more people will use
I
that
agree.
than, so I think
I
that
agree.
will take that out of there. Now, when I drive by their apartment complex on 6th South, just across the railroad tracks,
Yes.
there's not a lot of vehicles that come out of there. I'm surprised for as many buildings as there are in there, there's just not that much traffic.
Are you talking about the apartments that are kind of by McKinley
Yes,
School?
yes.
Okay, I'm with you, okay.
So I don't know.
So, Tremont Street is a minor arterial, I believe, or it's a minor arterial. Yeah, and so Rocket Road is also classified, I believe, as a minor arterial. We don't have the same right-of-way width as Tremont Street, and it doesn't quite meet our standards. So we are looking at ways to, as development occurs, to essentially increase the right-of-way. So here, there's an extra dedication of right-of-way width on Rocket Road. There will be some constraints where it's already developed, and you know where those locations are. But then again, there's an opportunity to increase the right-of-way on the south side as you continue essentially next to the interstate. And so we are trying to increase that right-of-way width in that because of what our transportation master plan shows.
How many, can you remind me how many houses? I know that you,
150-ish, I want to say.
Yeah, eventually they will.
I think it is 150. It's 9 dwelling units, just under 9 or 10 dwelling units per acre.
but they're different sizes, right? Wasn't it like $180,000 to $250,000?
So there are different housing. You can sort of see them here because they have N units, and those N units, I believe, are single floor living. And I want to say they're up in the, I think they're close to 3,000
Yeah, I
square
think they
feet.
go anywhere from 1,400 to 3,000 square feet.
And some of them aren't, they don't have upstairs, is that what I'm hearing you
I think there's
say?
some of them that aren't gonna have the upstairs.
Oh. Okay.
The N units won't. But then you have the middle units that I think are closer to the 1,500 square feet.
It's a.
So here is the, here's some of the amenities. This is Stonehaven. This is the existing development that was in Smithfield.
See,
Mhm.
this is.
And let me see if there's any other. But there was, oh,
And, you know, this here is only their first phase, so, that,
What's the first phase? How many's in a first phase?
see, I don't, what was that one, about 50, 60?
Let me see if I can see the first phase. So I want to see, oh, you can see phase one, which is kind of hard to see, but it's saying phase one here, which I think
Breaks off
is-
right through there, yeah.
is this right here. It does not include the, this is phase two over here. It doesn't include
Okay.
the common amenities. They have to wait, or they're proposing to wait, and our zoning allows them to wait until, I think 75% of the homes are done, but they're gonna have a zero entry pool. They're gonna have, as you saw, a weight room, a movie theater, a clubhouse. They're gonna have a jacuzzi and a regular swimming pool.
So this is gonna be in 4 phases? Is that what you said?
I think it's in 3.
Oh, in 3.
I can
One,
see 4,
Is there 4? He
and there
might
are
have
5.
I guess he's got it split, don't he?
Yeah. So right now they're showing 5 phases, and
So they're gonna work towards the north.
right. I think the most difficult, I mean, one of the things I'm concerned about is just that it's a private road and stubbing into an adjacent property. I think the utilities we've decided are gonna be public so that the adjoining property owner can connect. There's a trail planned along the canal corridor, and we've talked to them about potentially having them construct the trail as part of their development, essentially give them impact fee credits.
Yeah,
towards
and
that.
they sounded interested in that. The one thing we might want to consider is continuing that trail all the way down to McKinley if we can.
Yeah, and we
That would
can,
be the ideal.
except we just don't have that.
I know, but we ought to work
Yeah.
towards that.
Oh, I
The last connecting piece of
Yeah,
property.
because that would give all those kids, they could just walk to school and stay off the road, and that would be ideal.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
We'll talk about Jay Stocking, who's proposing an annexation. He wants to continue the trail through his development as well. He sees a lot of value in having that type of amenity. So the Matheson, I believe is what they're calling it. This is the Tremont Center, and Tremont Center is located right here. I mean, this essentially is the location within Tremont Center where the apartment complex would be. And here's a site plan that shows the first phase. It looks like there are 4, 6, 7 apartments, 24 plexes planned at this first phase. And this is, just for orientation, this is 4th West right here. And this is the back of Shopco and some of those others. So they do have a clubhouse with a swimming pool as well. And I think the clubhouse essentially takes the entire first floor, and then they, for levels 2 and 3, they'll have dwelling units up above. So,
Who is this meant to attract?
I think it's meant to attract, well, I mean, what they've talked about is essentially, this is Wasatch Development that's doing this, Deloy Hansen, and it's a product that we don't really have within our city limits right now. They talk about it being essentially transitional housing, you know, for people. They are apartments, so they won't be owned individually, but it'll give us a housing product that I don't believe we have with these types of amenities. We're starting to see amenities come in with townhomes, but there's nothing in apartments that are like this. There'll also be garages, which are located right here, so individuals can rent garages. Garages right here. And so for apartment complex, it is essentially a different product that we have had. If you want to see what they've done in the past, you can look at the Falls in Logan. There's also one, I forget what it's called, it's in North Logan. The Falls is right behind
The hotel and
the hotel, yeah.
Riverwoods, is that what it's
Riverwoods,
called,
yeah.
Riverwoods,
Mhm.
down there at the south end?
To the east of that, they're kind of the east.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So this is what the apartments will look like,
Yeah.
rendering. So. It was this, the nice thing about this product, our project, is it will give us a lot of park impact fees and other impact fees at once, just because of the number of units that are coming online. The other thing I was going to mention, let's slips my mind at the moment. But anyways, so they're moving forward. The status is they're just waiting to come back to the DRC with the site plan. We've already reviewed and provided a good amount of comments to them already, and so they're just working through those comments and preparing the final site plan. So, oh, I know what I was going to say, the RDA. So as you know, this, I think he told me, I need to check the value. I want to say it's essentially 1.9 million per unit or per building, which would essentially help boost our RDA values, which will allow us essentially the funds that we need to pay the developer back and then start reinvesting in our Main Street. So Edgewood, this is right across from the hospital. The hospital is located right here, Archibald Estates. This is, I think they call it a generational neighborhood, where they have different housing products within the same development. They have essentially 8,000 square foot lots that borders Archibald Estates. To the east, they have, I think, 6,000 square foot lots right in here. They do have essentially patio homes, which is geared towards more senior living in that portion of the development. And then up here, they have townhomes. And the hospital's located right here. Gene Stevens there. So they are working, they have the preliminary plat approved by the Planning Commission. They're working on it.
Are those public streets, or are they going to be?
It'll be combined.
It'll be a
Like where the
combination.
townhomes are and the older, they'll be private, but the main one too will be public. It takes you all the way from Archibald's out to 10th.
Then as you go into the different parts, it'll be a private.
They'll be private.
Here's some open space. It's the storm drain retention pond right here with a few amenities. I think again a site or a storm drain basin right here with I think a pickleball court.
Will this be done in phases, or is this going to be all one project?
That blue area that you see, more or less, kind of shaded,
Yeah.
and I don't understand what the gradation's for exactly, but essentially that blue area right in here is phase one. They want to do a little, all the housing types within one phase so that they open it up.
So the blue is going to be homes similar to what will be put up next to it, is that right?
Yes, well, it's already there in Archibald.
Right,
And then the other kind of phases into the other
types of housing.
types of homes, yeah.
Yeah.
So they are needing to vacate a subdivision. There was a subdivision that was platted for a church site that was never constructed, so there is a public road there, so they actually need to vacate that previously platted subdivision before they can finalize any of their development plans. So the Hanson annexation, this is an annexation that's being proposed that will be on the City Council's agenda here in the near future. This is in that same vicinity that we've been talking about, where Tremont Place is up in here and Aspen Ridges is right here. Blake Christensen's there. Essentially, it's 24 acres of property. It would, I don't know if you can follow the dashed black and white line, but that's our current city limits right now. And so it'll essentially extend our city limits down to the interstate is what the proposed annexation is. In talking to Jay, we talked, he'd like to do some higher density here as well. We've talked about in consideration of higher densities that they have higher amenities. And so we haven't seen any proposed or talked to any proposed zoning only conceptually, but the idea, could be to essentially do some higher density or attached housing or smaller lots on this portion. This is where the canal is. And again, as I mentioned to you, he's really supportive of the trail system and believes that would be a great amenity and selling point for his residents. And it makes sense to have higher density along the trail corridor, so it is used and it is an alternative transportation corridor, which is what we're hoping it to be. There is and I've talked, here's the boundaries of the annexation. It would include a piece of property that the Tanners own, right here, and then Blake Christensen's farm, which is currently outside the city limits. That's, if I had more.
See, that's where I live.
We go back.
So Century Drive is just, right there,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, there is a regional storm drain basin that's required and needed to service this area, and we talked about it essentially being located right here. Our master plan shows it on the other side of the road, but the idea is essentially to make it into a neighborhood park. We talked again about having some amenities in there, him constructing the park in lieu of, or in trade for densities that would be granted to him there, and then essentially have the trail system connect into that open space. We have talked about sewer, and we are getting towards the end of the limits of what our system can flow to. This is essentially a diagram. There's two options. This is where the cemetery is. This is the existing sewer line right here. And one option is to connect just at this intersection. But as you know, the sewer line goes deeper as it falls into the Mlad River bottom. So if it goes to the end of essentially right before it crosses, he can get more depth and essentially get into this area, which is on the other side of the interstate, with a gravity flow system if he connects to the lowest part, which is in the Mlad River bottoms. Otherwise, as he gets on the other side of the interstate, if it was ever annexed into the city, then he'd be pumping at that location, which I think is what he's planning on doing.
And the wastewater treatment plant, show me where that's at, I'm sorry.
Right here.
Or right there, okay.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to that, Paul?
No,
So,
no, sooner or later, it's gonna have to be pumped to us. You know, right now, we gravity everything, but as we expand out, and as flat as Tremonton is, there comes a time when they have to have a lift station. And they're expensive.
When can we have a tour of the new plant?
Well, I figure once they get it constructed and cleaned up, so we're probably looking at April,
Okay.
the May time frame.
so this will be something that we'll be talking with Jay about. We'll be working on a pre-annexation agreement that tries to formalize some of the things that I've mentioned to you. I've had informal conversations with Jay, and he's fairly receptive of the things that we've talked about. So,
Good.
1650 West subdivision. This is a subdivision that Tremont City is sponsoring. It's related to the creation of a collector road of 1650. This is Main Street right here. This is the interstate, and essentially, you might recall that John Deere, it's Arizona Machinery, Stotts, I think it's called Stotts, owns this property right here. This is property that's owned by IFA, and this is existing 1650 West, and the idea is that we actually have a collector road that continues and essentially runs parallel to the interstate. And jump to this map. This is where you can see essentially the planned alignment of this collector road. It is showing a traffic signal right there. I'm not sure we will get a traffic signal. I think we're looking at the traffic signal being at 2000 West, which essentially would be right here. So I'm not sure there's enough spacing to have two traffic lights, but it will be a collector road, and we look to essentially extend 1650 West to the north, connecting all the way into 1000 North. So, jumping back, essentially it'll be platted. This is the 1650 West subdivision. They are adding, so right now, this white parcel number 2 is what Stotts Equipment owns right now. This is what IFA owns right now. They're wanting to augment their existing parcels because the city street is taking some of the developable property, and so their parcels would be enlarged. It's a three property owner transaction with Contemporary Homes, with IFA and with Stott's equipment and the city. So this is some of the concept plans that we've done just to show the layout for IFA. They were concerned about having a couple pads out front along with their typical IFA store, and you can see that being accommodated by this additional parcel. This is the back spot where IFA would have potentially a yard and their storm drain pond right there. So, and then Stott's equipment would like to do an expansion as well, which we show that it could reasonably be accommodated with the alignment of the road. We spent quite a bit of time adjusting the alignment just to make sure everyone's future developments needs could be reasonably accommodated. So this other property, just for your information right here, those shaded areas, that shows regional storm drain pond that we need. The outfall, there's an existing outfall underneath the interstate right there. I don't know if you can see that call out right here, but that's where a pipe is situated that goes underneath the interstate, and it would eventually tie to the mill ditch pump.
Mm-hmm.
That flows out to Salt Creek.
Salt Creek, yeah.
Yeah. And so we have started the conversation with Contemporary Homes and the Farmland Reserves. It's a branch of the LDS Church, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the church, and I'm working with Contemporary Homes on trying to acquire the property now, for that regional storm drain basin. And what I'm proposing is essentially impact fee credits. And I think the LDS Church would like to have relook at their zoning. Right now, I think it's half-acre lots right there on the property that they own. And so I think they're reevaluating the long-term and short-term use of the property. And my hope is that they'll give us, we'll work out a zoning impact fee credit agreement with them, and the same with Contemporary Homes. So that's just a storm drain master plan that shows the location of our regional detention basin, which mirrors kind of what we've been talking about. So our obligation would be to construct a road in the future, and that's the only reason why we're doing this, because we can't exact a road. And as you can see, the long-term needs for Tremonton City for the growth of that area requires that we have a collector road. And if this property, if IFA essentially develops on their property, we reasonably lose that opportunity to develop it. So we did get corridor preservation funds, as you know, in the amount of about $200,000, but the actual construction of the road would be closer to $750,000. So I need to work with Curtis to figure out the time, when we could reasonably undertake that. That cost estimate that's been prepared by our city engineer does include all the utilities and also a UDOT turn lane. So along the frontage of 1000 North, there'd be a turn lane where people could essentially a deceleration lane, move over, and essentially make a right-hand turn. And then that intersection is a little bit larger than the actual road would be, and there's some utilities that would need to be moved. So it is a rather large expense.
Is it possible to get a copy of that budget?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. You'll see it again. I can email you something right now.
That'd be great. Well, just when you can.
Okay.
I'd like to see it.
All right. And so it is on the DRC's agenda for tomorrow, and then I'm working on completing the acquisition agreement. I have a draft completed. Dustin's reviewing it, and then I'll circulate it amongst all the other parties, and we'll put it on the city council's agenda. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you,
That was a
Sean.
lot.
We got a lot going on, thank you. Any department heads that want to comment?
Well, I was just gonna say, some of these projects, we look at maybe this is an opportunity to expedite some secondary projects. Like that big apartment complex, we talked and discussed it. We could expand that secondary system into Mine. J.D. Harris's subdivision there by the school, and be able to serve them and take them totally off of culinary before they even come. And some of that also down on the south end of town too, because we have the location for it. We just need to put some infrastructure in. Developers will be providing some infrastructure, and we can provide the upgrade that we need. And
It's a good time to do it.
And it is, because then those people start off right on with secondary.
Yep. Good time.
And it's right in conjunction with the canal.
Very good. Thanks, Paul. Council reports.
Oh, actually, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
yes, you have, oh,
Yeah, I'm just gonna briefly let you know of some calendar items, if you're okay with that.
yes, that would be awesomely cool.
Okay, so we do have a pre-disaster meeting, mitigation meeting, if you're interested, and I'm planning on attending. I hope Paul can attend too. I haven't mentioned it to him, but essentially Bragg has put together a pre-disaster mitigation plan. It's a required plan that they're required to put together. There's been a lot of analysis that's been done, and so at this Thursday meeting, January 30th, at the courthouse, they'll be talking about all the analysis along with some mitigation plans. So if you can't attend, they would certainly appreciate it. And it will be a plan that is on your agenda. And so this helps you to get oriented and comfortable as an introduction to the plan before it's on your upcoming city council agenda. So the other thing I was going to mention to you is that we do have the Chamber of Commerce annual banquet. And
Next week.
It's this Friday.
Right.
This Friday.
And we did get a table, I
We-
believe.
We've got a table.
Yes, and she wants to know names. So maybe I should-
Connie, can you go?
I can go. I'd love to go
You and,
with my husband.
yes.
Uh-huh, I'll go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Friday night at 6. For you and your wife.
You want to go?
Sure.
I don't, you might be a little overwhelmed.
You don't have to go.
No.
No,
Okay.
if you've got room, I'll see.
Sure.
what she's doing. Okay.
You, Connie,
Yes,
Brett,
it'll work.
Rick,
All 4 of them.
just not one.
No, Laura's going.
Allowed to?
How many you got on the
We have 8
table?
seats.
8?
Pardon?
We have 8 seats.
You only have 8.
Well, you know what, if Rick,
No.
If Lyle's gonna go, that's all right.
Lyle's going.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought Lyle Vance.
No, he's.
No, Wild
he's-
Dance is playing.
Oh,
So if you wanna go, then we'll stay home.
I don't,
Because you're going, right?
it depends how, I have surgery Thursday and I don't know whether I'm going to be feeling good
Oh, you're
enough
not
to go.
going. Stay home.
So plan on going without me,
Yeah.
okay?
Alright.
And
So that's
I
next
think Zach has an extra seat or two, doesn't he? Doesn't he have 4 seats?
I don't know. I didn't hear, but he is getting an award.
Yes, Zach's getting an award out there.
Cool.
So plan on it.
Okay.
And if I can come, I'll squeak in somehow.
And then we just show up and they'll have our names there.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And
Sound good?
do you mind scrolling down and see if there's any other items?
6, I think.
Oh,
What does
yeah.
it say on there?
6 o'clock. 6:30. 6:30.
6
Oh,
o'clock,
6
you want to be
p.m.
part of that
Official silent auction.
auctions.
So the other thing I was going to make you aware of is we do have some training. It's part of your regular scheduled city council meeting. And that'll be March 3rd. We'll be talking about the Municipal Officers Ethic Act along with the Open Meetings Act, which the Meetings Act is required training and I think the Ethic Act is just a good training to have and to be aware of.
Okay.
So is it 10 a.m. or 2 p.m.?
So, yeah, let me clarify. So we're also having the staff trained on the Municipal Officers Ethic Act, and that will occur at 10 and 2 o'clock. So the council's not necessarily expected to go to that. If you want an expanded training, you could go to that because it'll be a lot longer than what we're able to do in our city council meeting. So I'm only anticipating 20 to 30 minutes.
Abbreviated.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, if you just come to your regular city council meeting, then you're available at the meeting, at council meeting, you'll receive the training there.
Okay. Anything else, Sean?
No.
How about if we go to council reports now?
Rick, you got anything?
Rick?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
I do. And Mayor, did you want to talk about this?
Okay, a lady came in and talked to me today about being internet awesome. It is internet safety for your kids. And she would like, they'd put banners up in schools, and if they felt so inclined, I don't know, I think it's probably a good idea, because there's a lot of crap on the internet. And if it guides and helps our young people, it's probably a good deal. If they want a banner put up, we'd put $50 per school if we put a banner in, or go up from there. Would you guys like to be participating in something like this?
I think it'd be really good.
At least a minimum, and maybe watch about a minimum?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll give this to you, Sean.
Okay.
All right. And
then,
Brett.
Bear River Middle School has its first White Ribbon Week in February of 2020. It says 2011. Thanks to a wonderful school counselor, Mr. Matt Zollinger. So, for every year since, okay, so he started this in 2011. For every year since, our community has been involved in a White Ribbon experience. White Ribbon Week's purpose is to increase public awareness of the potential harm done by exposure to pornography. And so, White Ribbon Week will be February 3rd through the 7th at the Bear River Middle School, with a full week of activities, in-class internet safety presentations by the state of Utah, and student assembly presented by Fight the New Drug. And so Clay Olson, the founder of Fight the New Drug, is going to come and speak. And so I was asked to hand one of these out to each one of the council to make sure that you're invited. And I just wanted the city to have some of these so that we can support.
And I was going to tell you on this other thing that we're talking about, there's a website here. Google is participating in this.
Oh, cool.
And there's a website that can give you some internet safety ideas. And it's on this piece of paper, and I'll get a copy of it and I can give it to you guys.
Okay, next, over at, you know, where the apartments are over by the power, Rocky Mountain Power, right next to the railroad tracks, there's that big apartment complex.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's been suggested that they've asked that we start on the walking trail as soon as we can for that same purpose that we were talking about down at the south end, because many of those kids are walking on the railroad tracks to get to school. And that, the huge safety, and I thought, well, you know, that may be a good opportunity to say, hey, let's get started on our trails. And that may be a good section to get going. I know it comes and then it comes up, right? But they should be able to get onto it, shouldn't they?
I need to check the property for sure, but yeah, I think we try to make, I think it touches that, it's called the Crown Home Apartments.
Yeah.
And I think it does touch, I think there is a connection that can be made. We actually have an easement through Rocky Mountain Power's property, and right now our easement requires us to construct the trail within the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I did reach out to them to see if they would grant some flexibility, and they haven't gotten back to me yet, but maybe that's something you want to move up on the list and just get it done.
Well, that's why I'm mentioning it. I kind of would, because I really don't like the kids walking on the railroad tracks.
Okay.
And so that would be,
Maybe the cost us.
I think we could do that, you know. Number two, Doreen Siever gave me a call. I don't know if you remember Doreen, but she's with Suicide Awareness, one of them. And she asked if they could use the trail to do their suicide awareness walk this year. I thought it was an awesome idea.
Yeah.
You know, and they said they might have a few booths up and that around, but I don't, is there any reason they can't use it? If I give you a date and everything, They don't need to go through any insurance or anything like that where it's,
I don't think so.
No.
okay,
Good idea.
okay. And then, last thing, I have 3 names for planning commission.
And I
Okay?
have another name for you.
Okay, we have 4 names for planning commission, and we have 1 opening right now, and so I need to fill that. I have a Paulette Petticone, I don't know her, do any of you? Is that okay to be bringing names up?
I think so.
Okay.
You could go into a closed session if you want to talk about the character.
No, I don't want to talk any character, that's okay. Steve Seeley. who's over in
Steve
Arlington. Uh-huh. Lane Sorensen.
Yes, East Tremonton.
Uh-huh. And then, who did you have?
Teresa Schaefer.
Teresa Schaefer.
I have a phone number for you. I've already visited with her, and she is all about it.
Okay.
She feels really good about
And
it.
she's in South Tremonton, isn't she?
She is. She lives right across the street from the Tremonton West Stake Center, in that 2-story home that's got the white, it's got a white picket fence around it.
Mhm.
Whose
Yeah.
home did that used to be? I can't think of her name. I can see her.
Next to Bass's old house.
Yes, yes. She lives
Okay.
there.
So how do you pick somebody?
Well,
I don't think her husband's name.
I was leaning most towards,
Corey.
Corey Schaefer's wife.
and I think we're gonna have another opening soon too. But I was leaning more towards Lane Sorensen just because, number one, his location out on East Tremont out there.
It's out of the neighborhood, it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
What's our time obligation?
It's about an hour every other Tuesday, and then they get to go to dinner.
So it's all right.
Yeah. But I would like to get someone from that neighborhood over there too, and so maybe we'll put her on as a second person. Do you
Let
think
me give
she
you
would
her
be good?
contact. I think she'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Very detail-oriented, very, just, you can count on her. She's fantastic.
Okay, so are you guys okay with me putting Lane Sorensen?
I am.
Oh, totally.
I'm good.
Okay, and then if you'll send me that information, that'd be great. Okay, that's all I have.
Seriously?
Mhm.
Okay. Wow.
I don't have anything.
Connie?
Well, I have been reaching out, trying to get my connections so that I'm on top of my assignments. And I need to contact an Angela Byington for the new Hope Crisis Center. She hasn't returned my calls. I've called her a couple of times. She hasn't returned my calls as of yet. That's my contact. That's who I heard is my contact, because I don't,
Okay, I have been going to their meetings, and when they send me, they did away with their meeting next month. When they
Oh.
have a meeting, I will forward it on
because
to
I
you.
didn't know when, so I was calling her to find out where do I need to be when.
Okay, I will let you know as soon as I
I
find out,
did
okay?
talk to the library, and I do know when that meeting is. It's on the 7th of February at 7 o'clock. I told her I'd be there. So that's all I have. I just am trying to figure out who am I connecting. I don't know anything about you at USU. Supposed to be going over to that meeting too, but I don't know who to connect. I don't
Maybe
know.
ask Lyle, I don't know either. Lyle's the previous
Oh.
council member,
Yes.
so I think you should.
He'll guide you in the right
Okay,
direction.
so I'm trying to connect, but I haven't quite.
And as soon as I
figured
find out something from the New Hope Crisis Center, in fact, I'll forward their last
Okay,
email.
well,
on
I
to you.
called and left her a message on her phone and said, I told her who I was and that
Uh-huh.
I was trying to reach out to her, but I haven't heard back from her yet.
I'll get a hold of somebody and get them,
Okay.
okay? And I have nothing tonight, I don't believe. Anything else we need to talk about?
This beats the Patriots game, doesn't it?
Whatever.
Whatever.
That was exciting.
We need one more motion, I think.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion made by Lyle,
Second.
seconded by Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to adjourning? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be here in the morning.
Oh, okay.